So if we look at the sentence, how do we know? So let's create our function and say check Pangram. And then this param is the string we are expecting from the user. One of the ways we can do this is to create an object or an array that contains all the letters of the English alphabet. So we can say const letter or alphabet. Let's just call it alphabet. Alphabet equals, then we'll have an array of string where we have the first one, we have our A, we then put our B. We are creating this to help us so that we have the data with which we can use to check all the values, letters that are in the string that the user will pass to our function. After D, we have E. After E, we have F. Then we have G. Then we have H. Then we have I. Then we have J. We have K. Then L. M. We have N before that. We have O. Then we have Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Okay, I think someone is joining us now. All right, so let's look at our code. Let's continue with our code. So what we are doing now, we have created all our alphabet, which we now use to check all the letters the person is giving us. Now, there are different ways we can do this, but we want to use a very short approach. We are going to look through our alphabet. Then at each point, we check if this particular alphabet is in the sentence the person is giving us. All right, so let's say for, let's use for loop and then let I equals 0. I is less than alphabet dot length, then I plus plus. All right, so what are we doing here now? At each loop point we are in our alphabet loop, we check if that particular alphabet is in this sentence the person is giving us. So we say if it doesn't exist, so let's say if params dot include, I think it's includes, not include, then we put our alphabet, the letter we are now in, we put alphabet I. If it doesn't, so we just return false. Otherwise, we return here true. Okay. Now let's test our code. And then we say Pangram, say function, check Pangram. Then we copy this first sentence, the quick brown fox jump over the wall. Is it jump over the lazy dog? Okay, so there is one thing that we need to do here is to turn this to lowercase since all our alphabets are in lowercase, so that it will it will not result to error because of case difference. Okay. So now let's look at our algorithm. Open with live server. So you look at our solution here, Pangram is true because all the alphabets, the English alphabet in that sentence appears in that sentence. So now let's look at our second example of sentence here. I am coming to your house. So let's just duplicate our log here. Okay. Then this, let's call this one, and then pick this next sentence and add here. Okay. The second one is giving us false. Why? Because we say if a particular English alphabet is not found, return false. So let's look at the one that is not found. Let's look also log the one that is not found. Um, let's console all of them at each point of the loop. Then we'll know the one that is not found. Then we'll verify. Said, let's just say later. And then we put our params dot lowercase is it okay? No, we use alphabet at this particular, yes, this particular alphabet is not found or is found. So let's log our data here now. Now we look at B. At point B is when we have that B is not there. So let's check our sentence. You look at I is here, A is here, M. Coming does not contain B. So it does not contain B. Your does not contain B. House does not contain B. If we come here and then put by, we see that B is not there. So another one is going to be the one that will make it to fail. Now we look at D, is the letter that is making it to fail. If you look at our sentence, you see that there is no D. So if we still put D, it will move to the next one. And if it's there is look at F is not there. So it will keep on, if you keep on modifying the sentence, at each point when it fails, we'll be able to know that this particular sentence does not contain all the English alphabet. There are different approaches you can solve this, but this is the short, a very short approach where you can go through all the letters of the English alphabet and then look through them. At each point, you check if that particular letter is included in the sentence or the string that is being passed to us. Okay. Now let's look at another one called anagram.
Sorry, sir. Please, I have a question, sir.
Okay.
Please, what question are we trying to solve here? I joined late because I was busy doing something. I joined late.
Okay. What we are trying to do is to check a sentence in a string, a given string, if it contains all the letters of the English alphabet. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So with the example we've seen now, we can see that the sentence "the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog" contains all the letters of the English alphabet, but the sentence we wrote under "I'm coming to your house" that does not contain all of the letters of the English alphabet. And looking at our function, we look at what we did is to create a variable called alphabets and then assign it an array of all the English alphabet. Sometimes when solving a problem, sometimes you might need to create some data, some variable that we contain some data which we use to analyze the problem you are solving. Like in our case here, we created a variable called alphabet and we assign it the value of an array containing all the English alphabet. The ones we have been solving yesterday, in most times we didn't have need of creating a different variable or data that we will use to solve our problem. But in this case, we have to do it to simplify our solution. So what we did after going through each of the alphabet using a for loop, at each particular point, we use the letter of the alphabet, that particular alphabet, and check if it exists in that sentence that is sending to us. And the function we use to do that is include. This include means go into this sentence, check if this particular variable here, this value here, like in our case is the alphabet, if it exists in this particular sentence, then this expression will be true. But if it doesn't exist, remember what we learned earlier using our negate what is it, operator, this exclamation mark, it means if this is true, it will turn into false. We want to check only at a point when this particular condition is false. That is when this code will run. So it will mean that if it does not exist, if this letter doesn't exist in the param, then return false. Don't do anything for it. Just break the loop and return false. When we say return like this in a loop, it will stop the execution of the loop. Like you see that we are logging our letter, and when we got to D, to the letter that is not there, the thing just returned false and we didn't see the log of the previous letter because the loop stopped executing when we say return. Just like in the switch statement, when you use break, break will stop the execution at that line, but it will not stop the execution of the particular switch operation because so many other conditions are remaining to be tested. It will move to the next one. But in the case of return, return will just terminate the execution of the entire loop, even if it's just the first time it's running. Because you say return, it will not execute the other expected times. Okay, we look at another one called a palindrome, solving a palindrome. Now, the palindrome is a word that when you spell it backward, it means the same, you get the same spelling. Like our English name called Anna, Bob, and Hannah. If you start the spelling from the last and come to the first, it will still be the same spelling, the same letters. Whether you rearrange it or not, the same letters is what you will get. So how do we solve this? We have already seen more than 50% of the solution to this problem when we consider our reverse operation in a loop, sorry, in an array. We've already seen that. Then we've also seen a situation where we loop through a string from the back to the front. That is from the last to the front, which is also a way of doing reverse. So either of the solution will work perfectly for us to check if a particular word is a palindrome. So a palindrome, let's just create a problem, check if a letter, if a word is a palindrome. Okay, and then I've told you that the palindrome is a word that spells same backward, like the word Hannah, the word Bob. Then you look at Hannah and others. So let's now write our function. Let's say function check palindrome. Okay, so what do we do in this situation? You remember, we are going to need to create a second variable that will contain the value of our reverse string. We can write it in a single straight line, but for clarity, to make it clear, let's just create a variable. Say equals our params. We are using the array functions now. We are going to split this, turn it into an array with a space. We're going to split it by, and then we say reverse. Okay. So now we have gotten our reverse word. And then what we are going to do now, we are going to say if reverse is equals params. Just that is the solution. If it is equals params, we just return true. Otherwise, we return false. So if we come and log our result here and say console.log palindrome, and then we call our function check palindrome, and we will put the name Hannah. Okay. Now there's something we need to do here. We need to turn all of them to lowercase in case of a capital letter used at different points. So we just turn everything to lowercase so that all of them will be in the same case to avoid issue. Like I spell Hannah here, you should know that if we now spell from the back, the H here and the other one will no longer be the same. But if we check all of, turn them to lowercase, everything should work perfectly. So if we save our code now and check, and what do we have? Palindrome. I think I have an error here. Saying check palindrome algorithm this. Okay, reverse is not a function. Oh my, I was writing reverse there instead of reverse. Cut what again? To lowercase is not a function. Where to lowercase? Okay, so let me just check our value. The params. We have Hannah. Let me equally look at reverse. And look at reverse. Because it might be that is no. Okay. Okay. So after reversing, we need to join it. We need to join it. So we join it with empty string. Okay. Okay, so we look at the situation, and that was what I was missing after reversing the array. You know, this now this after splitting, converting to array, we reverse is now an array. So we need to convert the array again to a string by using the join method and joining with empty string. So now we look at our palindrome is true because Anna is true. What in a situation where you use your name, you know that your name is not a palindrome, so you're going to get false because if you spell your name backward, it will not be the same thing. Like if I spell Stanley and then we spell Chinedu, let's say we spell Chinedu here, then you see that they will never be the same. Let's say we spell another one, they will never be the same. All of you, your names are not palindromes, so all this will be false. And then we check the result. We have seen the rest of them are false, false, false. Okay, so this is it about palindrome. Let me remove all this. It's no longer necessary. Just save our code. Okay, so you see the first one is true, which is Anna. The rest of them are false because none of them is a palindrome. If we put Bob here, you know Bob is a palindrome, and you see that particular one will not be true. Bob is not true. So that is it about palindrome. We first of all have to convert the string to an array and then reverse it. Then we join them again, convert it to string after we have reversed it. Then we check if both of them, the reverse and the other one are the same. So if we didn't want to create a second variable here, we could have just written all this in the position of this, that we can just bring it in here and we still have our result. So in this case, we didn't need to create a second variable. We just work with it and we don't have anything in space and we still have our result. So now, what do you think? How can we do about a loop? I hope, can you guys write using a for loop, looping from the back and to reverse the string before doing this part? That is doing what we did on this line using a for loop. Hello? Yeah, Destiny, I hope you can
For
do
me, I
that.
can't do it too.
Well, what about you, Gift and Destiny? Yeah, I'm waiting for your response. Hello? Destiny, can you use a for loop and reverse a string the way we did yesterday? Are you guys, or is only Chinedu that's following me? Hello, you're saying something. This is exactly what we did yesterday, the code here, the one I just commented. Before we did the reverse using split, reverse, and join. This is exactly what we did. I told you it yesterday that if you want to reverse a string using a for loop, your initial variable here should start from the last element in that sentence or in that string. And to do that, you assign the length of the string to your looping variable. In our case here, we have I. That is the variable we are using to loop our string. And then you assign the length -1 to it. Then your I will stop at 0 when you get to 0. And you do that by saying I is greater than or equals to 0. And then you say I minus minus instead of I plus plus. Then at each point, you you concatenate that particular letter to the string, empty string you created on top. And with this, you'll be able to reverse a string from the using a for loop. So let's try to do it again. And then let me comment this line. So let me reverse what we did there. Okay, so instead of having this now as our reverse, we're going to create a for loop. Then let's reverse equals empty string. And we are creating our for loop now to reverse the string that is passed to our function. So what we do is write our for loop and say let I equals 0. Instead of 0 now, remember we will now start from the last and say let I equals length of that array minus 1. Then our I should be greater than or equals 0. It should stop when it becomes 0. And then our I should then be subtracted 1 at each point. So what we now need to do here is saying reverse is plus equals, that is we are concatenating and reassigning to reverse. So we now say param and index 1, index I. So this will reverse our string for us. If we log our reverse now, you see that it will get the reverse of the data passed to us or to our function. We can say reverse now, and then we say, if you look at our console, so when you look at reverse, what is here is destiny. Remember, I haven't turned it to lowercase, so our destiny is still capital D here. If you look at gift, it's still GIFT from the back. If you look at this Chinedu, it's still counting, it's not reversed from the back. So that is our reverse. We've been able to use our for loop to do the reverse. That is what we would have done using the JavaScript function, splitting the string, that is to convert it to an array, and then reverse the array and join them together to form a string again before doing a comparison. If we check our comparison now, it's the one that is supposed to be true is still true, like for Anna, which is the first one, is still true. And then we look at for Chinedu is false because it's not a palindrome. Even Bob is true because it's a palindrome. So you look at, this is how you can use a for loop to reverse a string, loop from the back, reassign or concatenate the letters with a variable you create on the top. With that, you'll be able to get your string. I hope it's now a more clearer than yesterday on reversing a string. I hope you got it now.
Yes, sir. But the data of today, why do we now use split? Is it because of is another method? Why do you not have to split it?
Now, with JavaScript string already provides some function for us. Split is one of the functions that exists in the string constructor. Like this is a string, this particular, let's just create a string here. And anything in a quote like this is a string. So we can say this is a string, let's say a name, and then we put dot. When all these things you are seeing here now are the functions that are available inside the string function. And then you look at slice, you look at split. This is the split we just used. And look at the definition. What they're saying: split is a string, split a string into substrings using the specified separator and return them as an array, which is what it does. When you use a split, you are converting that particular string into an array, and it's expecting you to put a separator. And look at what we did in our own case. We said split this thing by space. Split it by space. That is why we didn't put anything. We just say split, and then we put empty space here. If you want to split it by something, let's say you want to split it by A. You see that is A here, or let's say we want to split Anna by N. If we come here and say split by N, it will be split by N. So let's see our reversed. Let me just remove these ones so that we can see the result of the split or the operation and save. Now look at our splits. Did I put anything in the log? That is our reverse. Now, do we have our reverse? Okay. Cannot read property log. We have error somewhere. At what number? Algorithm 127. 127. Okay. Here. Oh, this is the string I created here. So let me remove it. So look at our string now, our reverse. What are you seeing? You see our reverse here now, we split it into 3 using n. N is no longer in the values we are getting. All the n have been removed. We now have HA and AH. So when you look at now here, if you remove the 2n, you have HA at the front, and you will have AH at the other side. I think that is still a palindrom, but it's no longer a valid name, but it's still a valid a palindrom, because if you count HAAH, you still from the other side HAAH is still a palindrom, and it's still going to give us string. So that split, what it does is going to separate that particular string by the separator you specify, and then it will return the result as an array for you. So in our case, we didn't want to remove any particular letters. What we are doing is to split it by space. So after every letter, just split all the letters into the various elements in an array. And when we see this now, our reverse is going to contain all the letters of Anna, but all of them will not be separate elements in our array. So that's what we use to split. There are different functions in the string function inside the string and functions. So let's say when we create a string like this, you look at inside the string, there are different functions available for you within the string. So you look at, we've used the lowercase before, which you've seen in our code, and then we've seen car art. As we keep on solving problems, there are instances where we'll be using one or the other of these various method or string. So you look at this part end, part start, that is add values to the string, like space, add space, starts with. You can also check if a particular string starts with a particular letter or start with a particular set of letters. So we can say in this particular case, we can say check if it starts with S. And we know that standing start with S, this will return true for us. You can do this with string. You can check whether it ends with S, it ends with this. So this, we can use it to manipulate string in different ways. I don't know, is it clear now? So look at the includes we used earlier is a string function also. And then what did it say? It returns true if such string, a particular letter or string you are searching for, appears as a substring. If it is inside a particular string, it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. That is why when we use it, and when we are solving in this particular case, when we are checking if a word a string is an anagram, a pangram, we use that include to check if a particular letter is in the English alphabet. So that is it. You can use different string function. So one thing you can do when we use a particular function in a string like this, you can just spend some time, like ask a question or spend some time to read up about it so that you have more understanding about it, like our splits here, and which we just discussed now. So I hope it's a bit clearer now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My network is giving me issues, though. I'm fighting with network.
Even my own self is jumping. Sometimes you talk, it will hang before it come back. But my own share, though today, because today I'm using Airtel, because all the while I've been using MTN. I'm using Airtel, that's why I don't know why is it because it's Airtel. Even mine is giving me problem, but sometimes not work very well, but it should just hang and at least as if it's cracking.
Okay.
I didn't even understand what's happening today. Maybe there's a video for today class.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. I've introduced a token in 124, something in 124. Okay, this is, let me remove it before our code stop running. Okay, so what in a situation they say you should count the number of substring with exactly k distinct characters. That k is a constant that will be provided for you, like 1, 2, 3. In such situation, you now need to go through the string and look for the number of substring that you can get that are by the length of k without repeating characters. So for example, if you have an input ABC and they say k is 2, that is the word you form out of that ABC should be at least, it should be 2 letters long, and they should not repeat themselves. So you know that in ABC, you can have A and B without C. Then you can also have B and C. Okay. I think if we get to the solution of this might take us longer till our time is exhausted today. No problem. Okay, in this situation, we are going to now expect two parameters. I know the ones we have been solving, we are only expecting one parameter. Is there anyone we've expected two parameters? I don't think so. I think we've been expecting one parameters all this while. Okay, so let me first write the question. And now it's a given a string of lower case alphabets. And it's a count of possible substring. And then the condition, not necessarily distinct. Let's do not necessarily distinct. Okay, that has exactly a distinct characters. So you have, for example, if we have an input of ABC, and then our k is equals to, our possible output could be, and then have something like AB here. Then we can have another one like BC. Okay. So let's look at a solution we can get here in JavaScript. So let's create our function. Let's create a function and okay, distinct. Okay. Now remember we are expecting two parameters now, which is our string and k. So let's call this string and then K. So we can say this now. Let's a response equals 0. Let's create a variable and assign it to 0. Then we'll create another one. Let n equals the length of our string dot length. Then we now create another one. This is some array. You remember we are now using a new array function called from. Now this one is expecting an object where it's going to create an array from the parameter we are passing here, and what we are passing is the length of the array should be 26. Okay. So now we are going to write a loop now that will move from 0 to our n, which is the length of our string. So we can then say for, let me create a space here, let I equals 0, then our I should be less than our n. Remember, n is the length of our string. Then we have our n, our I plus plus. And we can next say if our CNT contains our string. Remember now we are using a function now, the char at I. We have first to loop here again. Let's remove this first. We have to create a second loop. This is a loop inside a loop. And we've not written something like this before in our class, where you have to create a loop and then you loop it again. In this case, okay, we have used I. So we need to use something else. Let's say j is equal 0. And j is still less than n. So have our j plus plus. This will be a bit confusing. It is confusing, don't worry. Then let's say our count is also 0. Our distance count is 0. So we can then have what we are doing here. Okay. So what we have here is at j. Why do I have this? Okay, that is, and then we also need to have hack code at. Now this is also another function in string. What this one return is a number. There is always a character code for all the letters in the English alphabet, including numbers. There is a set of code that represent them. Like if you search, let's look at our browser and say car code of A, and then we hit our enter. Okay, if you look at here, you see our A is 97. So as you type A in your keyboard, A is going to, what the system might be seeing is a car code 97. So that is it in the Unicode representation of those letters. The car code of A is 97. Is that?
Is it like ASCII code? Is it like ASCII code?
Yes, yes. All the letters and numbers have their ASCII representation. So I think on the page here, look at here, we have something. Unicode character code is the number of a character. Like the number of 87 represents the letter A. So just the Unicode here. In ASCII code also have a representation of all of them. So there are different ways these things are represented. But in this particular instance, so when we say car code art, what we are looking at is not just the character. This one will give us the character at this particular index. Say, for example, in that particular string, let's say in this string, lowercase, car at 0 is going to be L because it's the first one, but car code at L is not going to be the car code of L. So it might not be something like 100. So if we come to our previous search parameter and put a car code of L, this is now what it will return for us and no longer L. That is it about car code. So you look at our L is represented in ASCII as 100, binary, this is it. So all of them have their representation in ASCII code, and that is what this one will return for us. Okay. And then what we are doing here now, we return it as 0. Then we minus again. And then a.car code again. Zero. Okay, and then we come here and check if it is equals 0. Oh, this is some more complex, and then if it is that, we increase this our distinct count by 1. So say distinct count plus. Otherwise, we could keep writing, and similar thing now. We just increase it by 1. Okay, now we write this outside the if. Similar thing CNT. I'm gonna type in CNT. Then our string again. And then c.car adds our J again. And we still get the key code. Key car code, I mean. Where is car code? Okay, this is it. Then at 0. And then we also subtract our A car code again at 0. Okay, we increase this. Okay. Okay, so here under here now we check our distance. Remember our distance is clear up, our distance count. We are checking if it is equal to our K. Then we increase our res plus. And then we return our res here, our response. So what if we want to test this? We can then use let me check where we are returning first. Inside this, I think we need to return outside. We need to return outside it, not inside the for loop. Okay. So let's check our log now. Console log our result. Then we put some let's just say result. Then we put our function. What is it? A check distinct, count distinct, and then we put A, B, C, D. Okay, let's just put this expression and check our console. Entered 137. saying reverse is not a function. Okay, let's go back here. So I've commented the reverse. So let's comment this one because we didn't finish it there now. So let's look at our result. What are we looking at? Why do we have undefined? Oh, I didn't put K, and we're expecting K after working with one variable. Now we are working with 3 variables, and I'm omitting the K. So why are we having undefined? Even if our response here is not added, we are supposed to still have at least 0. Oh, I didn't also do return. Wow, sometimes these little errors can be so frustrating. And at least we are seeing our 0. Okay. So let me bring this return inside this loop. If we are bringing here, the result will not always be valid. Why it's giving us 0 is a concern. Okay, let me verify our code again. Let me maximize this so we can see it more clearly. Okay. So while defining our array here, we expected another parameter, which is a function of underscore, and then is then a function 0. Then we'll close this. Okay. So with this now, this is where the error was coming from. This second parameter was omitted. And we look at our from, the signature here is saying we expect something here, and we expect the second one. This is the one we are omitting. So, and omitting it makes the entire code to misbehave. So now if we look at our response, now we have 4. So let's look at what we actually have here. We are looking for 3. We want to divide this thing, all of them, by 3 and see how many we can get. So we can have something like A, B, and C, which is 1. We can still have BAA, which is 2. Then we can have something like ACB, which is 3. And then we can still have another one. So our code now is telling us that we can break this code into 4 places and still have three letters. So let's see if we have only 3 letters like A, B, C, and then we put our code. If we say 3, we only have 3 letters there. So if you look at this here, it's saying that we can have it only 1, right? We can have this up to 2. Let's look at our 3. If we have 3 here, it's still only 1. So let's try to explain this code a little more, because without the explanation, I think this code is a bit more complex than the one we have written. Okay, so let's look at, I've gone further. We have our response, our result we want to return here. We are expecting it to be a number. That is why we just assign it to 0. Then we just rated our m, which is the length of our string, the string the user of our function is going to pass to us. Then we created an array of 26 letters, just to have 26 content, and with this expression, a parameter, and it's always returning 0 for us here. That is what this function is doing. This is a function. Anytime we see a bracket open and close like this, we are creating an inner function. And when we say this arrow means it's going to return the value that is in front of it. So in this case, it's always going to return 0 for us. And that is why you're saying at every point is that same 0 that we are using to do this operation here. Now, when we come inside the loop, we are looping, doing our first loop, and we created our distinct variable, our distinct count, equate it to 0 or assign 0 to it. Then we check at each iteration of at the second point here when we are looping through again. We are now checking if this array we created, the content, if it contains something that is at this particular location. That is our string at j, which is just our beginning from 0 to the end of n, the length of n minus 1. And if it is there, we check the car code. Then we check the car code of A and check the element at this if it equals to 0. If it is, then we increase this. Otherwise, we come down here again. We don't do anything if it is false. Then we do that similar thing here again, and then increase it by 1. Okay, and then we check if the distance and k are equal, and we increase our response or our result by 1, and at the end we return our result. And when we check it, we see the code returning to us a result similar to what we are expecting. Okay, I think we take a break here. If you have questions, you bring it up. Let's discuss. Remember, why we are taking this series is so that we begin to look at problems and think at the way to solve them. So if you look at problem and you think a way to solve them and you didn't get it, it's part of the process. Over time, as you keep looking at the problem, you might then be able to come up with a solution to that problem. So even when you start using your knowledge now to build applications, you also be encountering problems which you then be able to think of ways to come up with solution for them. So if they come, they tell you that the login page you built, people are no longer logging in, or they just ask you to build a login page, then need to analyze the problem. You know what you are expecting from the users. Like our function here, we are expecting string and k. So let's say for your own login, you are expecting username and password. So you will not put here username, and then you put the next parameter you are expecting password. You are analyzing now the problem that you want to solve. You look at the parameters that the user of your code, your program you were expecting from them. Then you begin to make decision of that data they supply to you inside your function. That is why we are taking this series. We look at the problem and try to analyze ways we can solve them. And that is what we did when we are checking if a word is palindrom. Even when we check if a sentence contains all English alphabet. This is what we are looking at. We look at the problem. They said write a function that checks if a string is a pangram or not. And that is what we did here. We now understand that a pangram is a word, it's a sentence or a string that contains all the letters in the English alphabet. So, and then we now assess that. Knowing this, we then use our knowledge to write a code that checks the letters in that string if it is available in the English alphabet. And for me to do that, we then needed to create our English alphabet array and check against it if that letter is in that array. We know this letter is there. But once we meet a particular one that is not in that array, we know that the word is not a pangram. There is no need of checking the other letters because one of them have already failed. And that is how we did that. Even when we check the other one, check palindrom, we also check, we first of all have to split the string or to have to reverse the string using either the string split function and reverse it with the array reverse function and then join it to convert it back to string, or we use our own for loop expression here to reverse the string by using our loop by going from the length of the loop of the string minus 1, which is the last element of the string, and move down to the first one, which is that in the 0. At each point, we are reducing our index by 1, and then we are assigning the letter of that string, of the particular string at that particular index, to our reverse variable, which we create on the top here. And then after we do that, we just compare. We turn them to lowercase so that even if there is a word the person is passing that is uppercase, it will not cause problem. And then we join them together and we check if both of them are equal. If they contain the same elements, the same letters, we know that the word is a palindrom. Otherwise, we return false, showing that the word is not a palindrom. So this is the way we analyze problem. We look at the problem. We also write down the step. What is it that we need to check? By the next one we'll do tomorrow, even if it's just 1 or 2 we take, I will be able to write a pseudo code. I think we have been missing that. We just use Math to explain the pseudo code for us, but I will be detailing the step now. Our step 1, convert, like in this case, our step 1 is to reverse the string. Our step 1 now is supposed to be 1, reverse the string. And then our step 2 is compare the reverse string with the original string. Okay. And then we say the next one is return true if they are equal or same. Otherwise, false. This is a 3-step we need to take to solve this problem. So there are some situations that we might need to take more than 3 steps. Some we might just need to take 1 step. So whichever approach you use to achieve your step 1 is up to you and the knowledge you have. Like I told you earlier, you can use this array function, this split function, turn it to an array, then use the array reverse method to do this. Someone can use this method, and someone can write his own for loop to do the job for him. Whichever one you use is up to you. So either of these will give us the same result. So depending on, if you imagine, if you already know that there is a function is a string called split, and then there is a reverse function in array, and then there is a join function in array, you might not need to write this loop by yourself. You might just utilize those already existing functions and get your job done. But if you don't know and you already know how to think in terms of programming, and you know how to write for loop, and then you know you can loop through a string, then you can use your knowledge on looping and reverse the string for yourself. And whichever approach you take, the end goal is to achieve the same result of comparing, of checking if a string or a word is a palindrome. Okay, I don't know, is there any question? So that we know if we should close now or we should answer the question.
So there's no question, but now I now understanding when you this when because first of all I didn't start with people because I was a little bit late.
Yeah.
I now understand when you say that in each question you are giving, you should break it down using a pseudocode.
Yeah.
That pseudocode now will not take the step. You should break that because it will take the steps you have to follow or the
Exactly.
flow of the program. Thank you. I now understand it. Even it makes me now to understand what I am doing from the beginning. Because when I came, I was lost, and I was like moving with that my mentality of not knowing where we are. Thank God you have now summarized it. And
Okay, it's my pleasure
I
to
don't know
see
what
that
we
we
did
get it.
today.
Okay, so what we do today, I will give us an assignment on something easy to solve in a string. So it doesn't matter, you can research about it, search somewhere, get a solution. And if you see a solution that already resolved it, you can try it. If it works, then you can clean it up and try to think for yourself, something you can do differently on how to solve it. Just like I showed you in this particular instance of checking if it's palindrome, then you can look at what okay, I wrote a for loop to do this, okay, but is there no way I can reverse this string and then check if it is without writing a for loop? So you can think in that line. And then what of this one, we use this to do our comparison? Apart from this equal to in string, is there nothing I can do to, compare two strings together? And there is an approach which we have used before, which you can use, and then you can then investigate it and say, okay, there is a function called includes in string, and this include checks if a particular string is inside this string. So we can come here and say, instead of using this equal now, we can just say, okay, if this reverse includes the original letter, and then we check if it is true. And then when we see come here, we look at our first one, which is Hannah, is still giving us true. But the other one, which is Stanley, Chinedu, is Chinedu here, is giving us false. And then we look at gift is giving us false. So instead of using a double equal to, now using the knowledge you already have in other ways you can manipulate string, you still be able to solve this. So if you give this assignment to two people, the other person might use our first approach, using equal to compare them, while the next person might just use includes to check if both of them are the same. If a particular letter is not there, this includes will still return false, because we are now looking for all the letters here if it is here. Okay, so in some case, this approach might be faulty because we are reversing that particular word. If it doesn't match, then it doesn't match. Okay, so that is one problem that include we get for us. It might not work well at a point, but when you look at it here, it's still giving us the exact thing, because it's checking each of those letters inside this param, if they are here. So just like we checked in Chinedu case here, all of them are still there, but because Chinedu is not a palindrome, it's still returning false. Okay, it is not a palindrome, it's returning false, but all the letters are still there, but the location are not the same. Okay, so let me revert this to it is. All right, thank you guys for today's class. We'll see you again tomorrow and solve the next set of problems. Good night and have a pleasant day.
Please.
Okay. No. Mhm.